welcome to my overview of the build I've been playing for the past week, which is a deck stacking ranger. Before we start and get into it, I'm gonna start with a map, canyon over here, put some mods on there.
Set my heart afire. Secrets and forbidden bliss, can't stay still, don't stop that thrill. My bones crave your skin, temptation within, mistakes ignite the silence. Nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
So that was the mapping showcase. Of course, both characters is still very strong and clear. This one even has a low single target, and surprisingly pretty survivable as well, which I'll go over more in detail. But while going over my gear and recording, I actually managed to buy this one. If I scroll up a little bit, we're here, 80 exalts. Did break a mirror, because I mean my funds have pretty much been the same so far. Any money I seem to be making, I've been spending again. So, but for 80 exalts, this is definitely a steal. Since +1 arrow itself is pretty much been going for over 100 exalts already. Though that this has perfect attribute roll and cold damage to bow attacks, which is one of the better mods, I think, other than chain, which is very much impossible to get chain and +1 arrow. So it's pretty much the second best mod you can get. So pretty happy with this, pretty easy steal. Next, my gear. So at this point, I'm probably a couple mirrors already, if not more, into this build. So mind you that, of course, you can do this on a budget, but you'll definitely get not the same damage, of course. So keep that in mind. First of all, the bow, you've probably seen this already. Best in slot, of course. So I'm not gonna go too much into detail over that, because I've seen it in my previous videos. The helm, again, Fractal Thoughts, best in slot for this type of build, is the most damage you'll get out of a helm by far. And then for the enchantment, +1 barrage projectile, which is the best for single target damage, of course, which is what you want to scale, because at this stage, I mean, you have so much single target already from iShield that you really don't need to scale it anymore. Next, the amulet. So we have flat dex, percent attributes, and then damage per dex, cold pen, and wed. So the only way to get these suffixes, other than of course spending a couple of mirrors with remove ad influence mods, which you don't want to do, is awakener orbing, percent dex and percent attributes together, and hoping you hit flat dex. Now, I've personally done like 35 amulets myself that I've awakened orbed, and the highest I've seen is tier 4 dex. So other than that, I've been checking the market. It's probably a while ago, because I got this amulet a while ago, and I've only seen 2 of them at this stage, with tier 2 flat dex actually, none with tier 1, and the other one for tier 2 dex with tier 2 dex was fully crafted, like mine is actually now, and it was up for mirror service, and the other one just had a suffixes and was for sale, and I managed to buy it for 35 exalts. And then I'm finished off the prefixes, which unfortunately is item level 83, so it can only get tier 2 wed as well, but that's only 8% increased damage difference, so it's not too big of a deal. It's the older mods that really matter. So the amulet, I mean, gives you so much dex and damage, and then the cold pen as well, so pretty much best in slot. Next, the body. So essence dex, percent dex, attack crit, double life mods, and explode. So I mean, even though you can technically drop, like I did get life rolls on pretty much most of my gear, and this ring will eventually get life as well. So we'll have pretty respectable life once my jewels and the other ring are fixed. We should have around 3.5k life, which for a deck stacking ranger is definitely on the high end, since you don't really pick up life nodes on 3 for this build. It's pretty glass cannon, so usually you end up with around 2.4 to 2.6k life, so getting 3.5k is actually pretty respectable without really dropping any damage for that matter. So next, the gloves. So again, Abyssal Socket, Coal, attack speed, and then we have life, +1 frenzy charge and proj damage. Now instead of the proj damage, you actually want Intimidate on hit. Since originally my plan was to get a Circle of Fear with Intimidate on hit, and then that's why I got the proj damage on the gloves, but turns out that, well, first of all, a Circle of Fear with the correct Herald Device mods with Intimidate on hit is already like, there's only 2 or 3 I think, and they're like 100 exalts or something like that. I mean, sometimes they go for like 50 exalts, but they get bought pretty easily, so they're pretty expensive, but that wasn't even the issue, because the issue is that if I use 2 rare rings, I actually get a lot more damage than using a Circle of Fear, so it's much more beneficial to just get the Intimidate on my gloves instead, and finish crafting this ring instead, so that's what I'm gonna do. But other than that, I mean, the gloves are still pretty up there. The only, of course, change I can make is get the Intimidate on hit, which I'll probably end up crafting a second pair for that. Headhunter, which, I mean, of course, even without Beyond, this is still very nice. I've been running pretty juiced maps, so I still get a lot of rare monsters, but you can definitely use a rare belt with flat dex, percent dex, wed, and then some other damage mods on there, which will definitely be a lot actually better for bossing, especially because that will give you a lot of damage. Can get, I mean, so much dex out of the belt as well. The boots, so we have life, movement speed, elusive, Abyssal Socket, dex, and resist, which is actually pretty much the only resist I'm getting on my gear. As you can see, like, I don't get any, well, this, but even without this, I'm still res capped. I'm just using this ring until this one's finished. So as you can see, my resist with this ring is like way over res cap. Speaking of rings, actually, I don't think I went to my ring. So this one, life, dex, assassin's mark, crit multi, cold damage to spells and attacks, and wed. Now this ring is supposed to be pretty much the same in terms of prefixes, but then with frostbite on hit as the other suffix instead of assassin's mark. Unfortunately, in this ring we've been pretty unlucky on, since we're now at the step to get tier 1 wed, which without any blocks is a 1 in 74 chance, but of course we always have 2 blocks, so at the highest weighting it's a 1 in 35, but of course we don't always have the highest weighting, so it's probably a 1 in 40 to 1 in 45 on average to get tier 1 wed. Unfortunately, we're 219 rolls in and we still haven't seen tier 1 wed. On top of that, we've seen any wed 28 times, which there's 5 tiers of wed, and they're all the same weighting, so could have easily been tier 1 so far, but this ring's pretty cursed, so unfortunately this ring isn't finished. We've been working on it for the past couple of days already, which is, I kind of wanted to finish it before making this video, but unfortunately no luck there. So with that ring we'll get a lot more damage as well. Mind you, once we do get this ring, we need to change our Anoint from Her Device to Whispers of Doom, so we can benefit from the double curse setup. So that's the gear. I mean, like I said, we're not really getting any resist anywhere else, so the way we're actually capping our resist is from these 2 jewels. So we're getting 3 passive jewels with 35% increased effect, and then you want 2 resist rolls on the suffixes. The best is the all res, rank 1, but it's pretty hard to roll, so I mean either will do. And then we just got life. You can also get ES for the other prefix on them. So as you can see, each of these nodes gives so much resist, and then a little bit of flat life as well. So from this one I calculated, I'm actually getting 174 total resist and 51 flat life. From this I'm actually getting a little bit more resist, because we have double fire res, which actually makes it round up to 35, so this one's giving us 177 all res, not all res, but total res, sorry, and then a little bit of life as well. So pretty much these 2 are just capping our resist, so we can go a lot more offensive on our gear. Next, the jewels. First, large cluster. We have disorienting display, cold to the core, and a blanketed snow. Cold to the core you can pretty much easily calculate. I mean, obviously for us this is a lot better than Sadist because we have so much dex, but you can easily calculate if this will give you more than 60% damage, then you, if it gives you more, then you want to use cold to the core. If it gives you less, you want to use Sadist instead. And I'm pretty sure other large cluster had the same nodes, except Doriani's lesson. Not really for the leech, but just we already have the blind here, so I may as well get a little bit of extra leech. And then these nodes are the same. And then here we just have regular jewels. Rest of the skill tree, I mean, pretty standard setup in the most part. One thing is these 2 nodes and these 3, which were picking only for the movement speed, because we want to be a little faster. So you can easily drop these nodes if you like the levels and don't mind going a bit slower. Next, this section, so we have a brutal restraint that, I mean, if you look at our dex, this gives us like 400 dexterity, so that means we have 20% dex, we have 5 here, 5 here, 5 here, and 5 here, and then we have 20 flat, 20 flat, and then of course all the other nodes also give us 2 to 4 flat dex on top as well, so this ends up giving us so much dex. But this is also why I've picked up some clusters. So first of all, this one, if you don't have the dex on here with a brutal restraint, I mean, you can drop these 3 points. Next, I mean, even these you could consider dropping if you don't have the dex on them. We do have the dex on them, so that's why I'm taking them especially. I mean, this one you would take anyway, same with this one. And then these, I mean, they're again debatable if you want to take them or not, but I did end up taking them, so that's my skill tree. Again, phase acro, and this is pretty standard. We have Watchers, which, I mean, we still have attack damage precision, which isn't really the best secondary mode, but for a budget, it's pretty good since it wasn't too expensive. But again, the main important is the base crit hatred one that you want to get, and then whatever secondary mode you can. So skill 3, Ascendancy, again, pretty standard for any Deadeye. As for jewels, those ones definitely still need some work. So this one, I mean, dex and int, damage, attack speed, crit multi. We did get the dex and int here because we needed some int, so there's that. This one, Corrupting Blood, I mean, these are the best stats I could get with Corrupting Blood, so we definitely want to get a better one instead. And the other jewels, I mean, those are all cluster jewels, so pretty much it's just those two. And we do have 2 abyssal jewels here, which dex, life, cold damage, attack speed. This one is actually pretty decent. And then here, crit multi-life, cold damage, which is not too great of a jewel. It's pretty easy to get something like this, so you definitely want to upgrade that still. Although that, my goal on the jewels was to get movement speed implicit on all of them, but the movement speed implicit is actually quite rare since I've been harvest crafting quite a few and I haven't even got a single jewel with it. So either that, or we can look at some synthesized jewels and then craft those out. So still working on my jewels and the ring, so those are the main updates we're looking for now. Flask, so Quicksilver, Diamond Flask, Southern Swallow, Bald Fate, and Dying Sun. If you can't afford the Bald Fate, you can still go for an Azir's Promise, which is what I was using originally. So there's that. So as the build, I think the only thing left is the gems. So we have Eye Shot with Wed, Chain, Hypothermia, Awakened at Cold, and Inspiration. So that's single target. You can technically drop a damage link pretty easily. I'd probably drop either Hypothermia or Inspiration. I'd probably drop Hypothermia actually because Inspiration helps for getting the crit chance up. And you can just use Mirage Archer if you prefer, because at least on my terms of gear, I don't have enough damage even with dropping Hypothermia. I mean, this is my tooltip without these two since they don't really give tooltip, and this one even lowers my tooltip, so as you can see, like, we definitely have more than enough damage for clearing. Our single target setup is Barrage, Hypothermia, Awakened at Cold, Awakened Cold Pen, Awakened Wed, and Inspiration. The Cold Pen actually, since I do have so much penetration everywhere that I think I might even switch this out for another damage link, which originally I wanted to use Awakened Elemental Focus, but I need a lot more int for that, and I didn't really have an easy way to get the int, so that's why I decided to drop it and use Cold Pen instead. But definitely I might use another link here for some more damage, since we have a lot of penetration everywhere, especially once we get the Frostbite in as well. Then we might look to switch this out. For auras, we're using Herald Hatred, Herald Vice, Precision, and we actually have Ice Bite support for Herald. Now, what you can also do is actually remove the Ice Bite, of course, and you can run either another Herald or look at doing something with another aura that doesn't remove much, like Arctic Armor or something like that, and use an Enlighten, of course, since you'll still have enough mana. But looking at the auras, there wasn't something that really would give me a lot, so what I'm doing instead, I'm using Ice Bite for Herald of Ice, which pretty much gives me Frenzy Charges, so I don't have to use Blood Rage and keep degenning. Now saying that though, Blood Rage is better, because of course it gives you the attack speed as well, so if you're not as lazy as me and don't really care about the degen when you're standing still, then you should definitely use Blood Rage instead. Next, Second Wind Dash and Val Haste, so this is just movement, and Val Haste for some speed. You can also use Val Grace if you want to be more defensive, of course. Frost Bomb, Ensnaring Arrow, and Ballista Totem, so this is just for bosses. The Frost Bomb, which I usually miss, but I mean, this gives cold exposure with minus 25% cold resist, and then the regen as well, the minus regen at least. And then Ballista Drum and Ensnaring Arrow. So first of all, what this does is it makes enemies take 20% increased projectile damage, so that's a 20% more multiplier. So you definitely want to use that. And out of that, I mean, these ballistas actually have a little bit of damage as well, since you can put 3 of them down, and they like give less movement speed to bosses and stuff like that, so they help as well defensively. So you just put your ballistas, your this, and then you just start barraging the boss. So that's pretty much the character, I think. I covered everything. And lastly, I want to leave you with a couple of Conqueror kills on Awakener 8, so you can see the damage in action, I suppose. And other than that, hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one.
When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down.